it work better if I get on this side all the way?
No, then we got a white background behind you that blacks out your face.
Yeah. Looks like that's about
Maybe it's all this on your face that's throwing it off.
Well, hello again, Mr. Bucket. We are back again.
Hello, Mr. Barry. We are. I see your room changed. I like your room. It's a lot better.
Yeah, I got the records. I decided the last room in Detroit that I used, it looked like I needed to tilt my laptop sideways.
Too bad you change your camera though.
Yeah. I see you've got a pile of stuff in your background there. You're doing
just behind the curtain. Just look
Bitcoin
at
mining. So today we have Evan on the show, Evan Basalik, a customer reliability engineer. So, welcome to the show. Very glad to have you on.
Happy to be here.
Welcome.
Well, and actually, before we get started too, I know that you yourself have a podcast that you and some others are responsible for publishing. So you might give a little bit of detail kind of about what you do, and also what your podcast is about.
Yeah, sure.
Celebrity on here. When do we start getting celebrities on our show?
Wait a minute. Yeah, wait a minute.
Now, are you trying to replace me? You can't replace me. I'm irreplaceable. All right.
Yes.
Hey, Ryan, he wasn't supposed to figure that out until after.
They
told me it would stay secret. Yeah. No. So this is the first time, Matthew, you and I have met, but Ryan and I, go way back virtually. So I, like Ryan said, my name's Evan Basalik. I work as a customer reliability engineer within the customer experience team within Azure Engineering. Okay. What that really means is when stuff breaks, I get called. I actually, I'm very, very, very early in the Azure world. I was a beta engineer for SQL Azure before it was even named SQL Azure, and have done a whole bunch of different things over the years. But about, I guess it was probably, I think we figured out we're on episode 294. So some folks and I do a weekly podcast called the Azure Podcast. We're not marketing geniuses, and we just talk about we have PMs and devs on to talk about what's going on in the service. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like what you guys do, right? This is really this. What did we figure out there? There's 100+ Azure services or something like that. Yeah,
just, and when you do all your mind around sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And so we just, we come in and we talk about, and to be honest, I frankly learn stuff almost every week. Happy to Ryan and I ran into each other at one of the internal conferences, and we thought it might be a lot of fun to kind of cross-pollinate and just, share some experience and share some knowledge. So,
great.
So, in your role in fixing and repairing stuff, I understand you've got some great insight, to kind of, provide some insightful detail to our audience on things to do to, maybe not shoot themselves in the foot, or, some advice on how to use different services and that sort of. Very curious to hear some of the common pitfalls that you run up against, and make sure that customers that are using Azure that might not have the ability to work with somebody like a cloud architect like Matthew or I, but are successful in using Azure. We want to make sure that all of our customers are having a positive experience with the services.
So really, how many times do you have to fix Ryan's mess up, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to
I love how so he's never met me before, Ryan, because I don't.
True.
Yeah, sure. We'll go with that, Matthew. Sure, we'll go with that.
Don't press my ego.
Yeah. No. So I think the way I would actually look at it, right, is I live kind of in this dual world of things break because somebody made not necessarily a bad decision, but maybe they didn't listen to their architect, or they didn't listen, to the guidance or the documentation, or maybe they didn't read it, right? They didn't find it. They didn't read it. And that's kind of a chunk of what I see. And the chunk of it is when, bugs and things do happen. But I mean, that's really the first guidance that I can kind of say, right? The documentation out there is not perfect. I'm not gonna lie and say it's always perfect and always great, but the best practices are out there. The things to do and not to do are in the documentation. I definitely recommend people read it. But I think the other piece is, to realize that cloud doesn't mean it doesn't doesn't break, right? Because we run, we Microsoft run the services, the infrastructure. Doesn't mean those things don't fail, right? That stuff failed in the on-premises world. Cloud doesn't change. You have to think about that, right? You have to realize that it's unfortunately it's a kind of a bad timing thing, but I'm sure a lot of your audience has who lives, depending on which part of the country they're in, right? They had problems with our South Central data center in, I want to say September of last year, maybe October now, time frame wise. But and then we just had another outage in South Central, a couple days ago, and we've always said this, right? Outages and those kind of failures, have happened. They happen to every cloud providers, and they will happen again in the future. So when our documentations or your architect or somebody says, hey, you should do retries, or you should, have multiple VMs running your service, you should, have failover concepts, like they're not doing that just because we want to make more money at Microsoft, right?
Yeah, same holds true in the on-prem world. I mean, if you had a single data center, it could very easily get struck by lightning, just like we unfortunately experienced. You could have an excavator dig up fiber, like happened not very long ago, or just a week or so ago. So that stuff happens, and in both of those particular instances, those are outside our control. Mother Nature and fiber getting cut or removed. So those are sometimes very difficult learnings for customers to go through. Because typically they're very upset, rightfully so. But then, had they thought about some of the nuances that are applicable in the on-prem world, they have to carry over, or they carry over in the cloud.
So out of that, though, for those outages, we had a couple different things come out of that, right? So we spent some time adding more documentation around resiliency architectures, right?
Absolutely.
So that was a good thing. I think helped our customers realize is like, look, you got to do your part too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think the one that really struck me, I actually contributed to some of this. This is probably why it's top of mind, but like when South Central went down last year, right, there was an impact on Azure Active Directory, right, which is one of those kind of dial tone services, right? You really can't design around not needing auth, right? You have to have auth.
Right.
And what's interesting is Azure Active Directory has features that allow, let's say MFA fails, multi-factor auth fails for some reason, right? AAD has features that say you can go in, you can turn off MFA for certain users or certain workloads or certain elements. Like, hey, if you're on your corporate network, you don't need MFA, right? But if you're sitting in the coffee shop, you do, right? And maybe your default is you always need it, but the capabilities to fall back to a lower level, when a service isn't working, all exist, and those have always existed. People they're like, oh, that'll never fail. I don't need to worry about that. And the documentation you're talking about, right? We kind of, it wasn't that it was new, it's that we resurfaced it and we kind of maybe framed it a little bit differently. But leverage that stuff, right? Like think about, well, what happens if I can't get my, if my CEO can't get his or her email? What's that mean for my daily life? Maybe I want to invest in making sure that that'll happen.
Yeah.
Right. It was funny that you mentioned that. I did a very tangential story, but I worked with a Fortune 50, Fortune 100 customer many moons ago, back before broad adoption Office 365, and their executives had their own Exchange server, that IT ran because they had they had some, let's just say, inefficiencies in managing and operating it. So they put all of their executives on their separate environment to try to make sure that the executives could always get their emails.
Absolutely. No, it's that mindset, right? I mean, we like to think, we're all equal, but at some level, if your boss's 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 boss is yelling, gee, that always seems to go downhill to for those of us that are out doing it. So, by the way, I will go on a little bit of a tangent right now because we talked about it, but this is so. I talk about this in all my talks. If any of the audience has ever seen me speak somewhere, but it is on premises with an S when we talk about stuff that is still sitting, in your physical data center. It's cloud versus on premises. I will let you get away. I think maybe Ryan, you said it and that triggered it, but I will let you get away with on prem. But if I catch anybody saying on premise, oh, I will so hunt them down. So that's the other off.
It's scary when the guy's drinking milk that he starts threatening you this way. I love this.
I will give the general
very
call.
well aware, and if I misspoke,
No, I think you got it right, but it just perked out. I was like, I'm here.
I hear that all the time. I definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's a game now within the circle of folks that I know at Microsoft where if they find a public Microsoft document that says it, they send it to me, and then I go spend a bunch of cycles getting it changed or chasing the PMs. It is. It is. How do we drive Evan crazy, right? Type stuff. So, So that DCs fail, right? Everything fails at some point. Think about it. The other thing, and we talk about the redundancy, right? And this sort of comes in the same play. And I talk. You guys probably hear this as well, but like I talk to customers all the time, and they say, "Well, I can build my app just the way I did on premises, where I said, well, just give me more hardware, just give me scale up instead of out." The downside is scaling up doesn't build resiliency. So scale out not only gives you more flexibility, but also it builds that resiliency in. Working with customer the other day where they're like, well, I'm going to increase my data in this because I'm signing more customers. It's going to go up 5x. So I need to get 5x the computing power. I might be able to give you that, maybe depending on what your needs are, but I could give you 100 machines with 1/5 of the computing power easy. I can give you that all day long.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We do have very large instances in Azure, the M series, and we have ones that go up to 3.5 terabytes of RAM. But, I had a customer who has a very large SQL instance on premises, the NES, and it's multiple petabyte SQL server. So they've taken that scale up approach. And it makes for a very challenging situation to try to move to the cloud. When you have something that you kind of build this monolithic stack, and they have lots of people that that are hugging the server all the time to keep it online, and it is a different mindset, and you have to think about that scaling out, and that's evident by our app services in Azure. You look at some of those web server sizes, they're not overly huge. They're the larger sizes, and I'm trying to remember how many cores. It was 4 cores and 8 gigs of RAM or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not massive, and so the idea is just to spread your workload out across more nodes to reduce impact should there be a physical failure, and then to also reduce your costs. Instead of paying for a gigantic box, you might not need a 3.5 terabyte server 24/7.
Right. So. Absolutely.
But you think about it too, we've got a bit of a, some pressure in our industry, right? So we've had change that accelerates, new things that can come about, new development models, new architecture models, and so forth. But you have customers who have invested, and IT doesn't get a lot of their budget, right? So they get stuck in some of these models, and for them to leapfrog, right? We're talking jumping sometimes canyon to the things to ditch those big monolithic databases or big servers is extremely hard. So, I think we have to spend a lot of time too encouraging our customers. Is you can do this, but here's these ways, right?
Yeah.
Scale out versus vertical, but knowing and being empathetic to that. Okay, that's going to take a lot of time, investment, and various things like that, right?
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think that's where the M series and type thing that Ryan was talking about coming to play. You can do it. You can absolutely go, right? But even just standard maintenance with these things. I mean, you ever try and restore a 1 petabyte database? I mean, you could go on vacation while it restores, right? I mean, and it's still restoring. So just I think lift and shift falls in that category as a whole for me, right? This is another big area. I totally for lift and shift, right? I was I designed apps and supported apps in previous lives as well. And right, it is really nice to be able to run the same thing, right, that I was running on premises. But is that how I want to run it? Is that the most effective way?
Yeah, no.
Right.
You don't encourage bad behaviors either. I get that. It's just I think sometimes some architects, won't name names, maybe on the show, who pretend how easy it is, right? Since
Absolutely.
sometimes the customers get disingenuous information. But you're right. I think it's another reason why we offer what we do is so we help that transition be more palatable
Yeah,
versus painful, right? Or
absolutely.
to the cloud.
Absolutely. Yeah. The customer I was working with that had a very similar database, kind of thing you're talking about, right? They started breaking pieces of it out over time, right? They picked up the whole thing, and then exactly. Well, they said, hey, we're going to take this little portion of the workload and put it in its own thing, and hey, we're updating this code, so we'll do that there. And they just, over time, it got more and more manageable, and I mean, I think that is key, right? Is you don't have to redo everything to get here, right? Like you can do it over time.
Well, you make the point. It's like in a lot of ways, a lot of monolithic stuff is because they were bolting on over time. Now they're just doing it in reverse, right? They're having to take the work back off in the opposite direction. So makes sense.
Yep. It's just an easier life to live in, right? If I can withstand failure, right? Good, everything. It's funny. So half of my engagements are, hey, I'm broken right now. The world's on fire. Like, please help put this out. The other half are, it failed before, and those are, actually in some ways much more comfortable investigations because you're up and running, and now you're trying to figure out how to make it not happen again or figure it out what happened. That is way less stressful. Yeah, that is way less stressful than my business is down and I'm losing money by the minute.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a better place. Speaking of like kind of troubleshooting and figure out what went wrong, the other big thing is like data. The cloud, I mean, on premises, there was data, right? That was generated. There's event logs, there's, perf logs, there's all kinds of stuff that you can look at. But what was interesting is it wasn't persisted in a lot of cases, right? In the cloud now, if I'm dumping my data to, log analytics, and I don't remember the exact time frame, but I think like by default, it's 30 days worth of data. And then if you want to export it to storage for, in perpetuity, you can like turn all that stuff on. Like why you would ever not run with it, I don't understand. We designed that stuff to have no perfit. So turn it on so that you can diagnose this stuff after the fact.
Yeah, and I think the driver behind that is that everything in the cloud has a cost, and I get the driving force behind not just enabling something that's going to add stuff to the customer's bill. However, storage is so incredibly inexpensive.
Exactly.
That and in like in your cases of doing postmortem analysis is required. I mean, you're handcuffed and strapped with your ability to do anything if you don't have that information to reflect back on to see what happened.
Absolutely.
I don't know how many times I get the questions like, well, can I go back and get it later on? And I'll go, not if you're not storing it.
Right. Yeah.
Hello?
Here, let me recreate it, right?
I had one customer ask me about something that had happened like a week back, and we're like, well, don't you guys just you capture all the network traffic? I was like, do you? I was like, first of all, no. Second of all, like we that scale is like uncomprehendable, and third of all, like why would we store that? That's
liability. No, I don't want
it. Yeah. No, it's funny you bring that up. I was actually just working with somebody the other day where they want just that, right? And the first 3 months was them asking us, well, why don't you have it, and how can you get it, and all that kind of stuff. And then now they're going down the path of they're going to turn on NetWatcher, right? Dumps it to storage.
Yeah.
Right. And it's always on, and they don't have to configure it. And by the way, you don't have to go into the VM to turn it on or anything. Right. Yeah. And now again, it becomes a conversation they can have about how much data do they want to store. Again,
put it in their hands. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. If they want to keep 30 days, that's fine. If they want to keep 2 years, that's fine. But keep something. Right.
If you get that question and you go, do you do it on prem? They go, well, of course not. It's almost like the answer is like, why would I do something like that? You're going, so why would we?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
But to your point, it's like the storage again is so cheap, and a lot of times I had customers where it's like, well, 3 months I had terabytes, and it cost me this much per gig on a SAN. I'm like going, you know, you have no idea that we store that stuff so cheap these days.
Right.
Why wouldn't you? Right? It just makes no sense.
Yep. Yeah. I was talking to somebody, and they were trying, you know, they were in their first couple of steps to the cloud, and they were sitting down doing, okay, this is if I move these workloads, these SQL servers, this is what's going to cost me, right, to build that compute and build that storage. And they, you know, they were sitting down calculating everything. I said stop. Like I said, yes. Do you know, do you need those numbers? But like I said, if it's not compute type resources, mostly don't worry about it.
Yeah. So inconsequential in your bill. You know, I'm saying that when I ran up a very large bill last month with something in my container services environment that was spewing errors. And anyway, so I had very verbose logging enabled, and my log analytics bill was, I say ran up a bill, but it was like $150. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not an enormous amount of money, but that's for my bill, $150 of logging. That's a lot of data that was ingested.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's so because we take it for granted, right? And there's so many times that stuff we just turn on without any consequences. Now we do cloud, everything has a cost to it, small or, you know, significant, depending on what you're doing. As a customer, the IT customers, I think a lot of times where I struggle with this a lot of times is customers just going, to your point, Evan, disconnect. These are the things that are important from a cost perspective. These things are trivial, but they have so much more intrinsic value.
What's the business value? Right.
Don't do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it you know, again, it's that kind of penny wise, pound foolish kind of, you know, paradigm, right? Like, does it cost money? Absolutely, right? Does every business, does every person have a budget? Absolutely.
Sure.
But we all spend money on things that we decide is what's important to us, and what's important to me is not what's important to, you know, you, Matthew, or to you, Ryan, right? But at least you have the option. And then if you're gonna, you know, if you're in a, you know, a regulated industry, or, you know, your you know, organization requires an RCA on all failures, right? Like, that's a business decision that you can at least make, right? You know, so I think to your point, right? Think about it, and then if you decide not to, you've made an informed decision versus just not even thinking about it.
Right.
I like your part here about more informed, right? Because sometimes they make decisions and not so much informed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing, you know, we're kind of talking about, you know, this lift and shift, and we're talking about data. You know, the other big thing is performance, right? Performance in the.
If I move something to Azure, doesn't it just magically get faster? Isn't that? That's what I heard.
That's why I say you must fix a lot of Ryan's problems, right?
we used to joke about, I was a SQL Server EE in a previous life. We used to joke about the DBCC, and you SQL DBAs in the world will know this. DBCC run faster, right? So it's funny because a lot of stuff does run faster, better in the cloud, right? Because you're able to dedicate the resources you need to it. But I think the piece that I see, and to be honest, you know, if I think about this isn't any different in the on-premises world, right? Load matters. Performance testing matters, right? And the one thing that the cloud brings you is it brings you two things you could never ever do in the on-premises world. So and I again, it costs money, but I highly encourage people think about it and consider doing it. Is one, actually perf test, right? You know, actually, you know, push some load and see how your system does. And then two,
representative load, I think, is a key there too.
Yes,
because I've seen you know, smoke tests with a handful of users when, you know, for a web application that's going to get 50 to 20,000 concurrents. So,
test to then also scale out. Right, because a lot of people will go, well, this is what my nominal load is. I'm like going, great, do you know what your peak is? And I'm like, well, no, why would I do that? You're like going, you got to figure out where it breaks. Right?
Absolutely. You know, but I think that's the way to think about it, right? Is, you know, how does it break and where does it break? But not only like how and where, but the break point's probably going to be different in the cloud than it was on premises. Right. You know, you may find that, you know, I don't know, off the top of my head, right? You know, if I'm writing a blob storage instead of to my local SAN, right? That is going to be slower on a, per read or per write perspective. On the other hand, in the cloud, I may have, faster clock cycles, right? So my tiny little queries are going to run faster because they run less than a clock cycle.
Right.
But I think test it, and at least have thought through and know what your failure profiles look like, because that plays into then when it does fail, knowing what the likely cause is from that failure.
Great.
Yeah. So I have a very recent, like this week, case. I've been.
By the way, he didn't call me, Matthew.
Yeah, I didn't call him for this one.
Yeah, I know he bribed you.
But it was a customer who had they containerized everything, moved it into AKS, and long story short, they're using PostgreSQL under the covers, and their connections that they're opening up. So this is an application that kind of grew organically. It was an internal line of business application, and it grew somewhat virally internally and started getting a lot of heavy use. So it went from having a couple tens of users to hundreds. It's still not a huge application, but what happened was PostgreSQL has some limits on the number of inbound connections and the way it kind of forks all those requests to be able to run queries. It just has to do with the way the query engine is designed and architected. So once it hits roughly 300, it regardless of whether or not it's being ran as a service on a VM, on a customer's machine, on premises, it doesn't matter. This is the same behavior that PostgreSQL will have running anywhere, and it was causing these connections to block, and that had a counter effect of actually piling up connections that were coming, or requests coming into the web application. In exhausting, ephemeral ports coming into the web application. So that's how it manifested itself. But the root cause was connections that were, it had to do with code that was actually inefficient or inefficiently reusing connections back to the database. And that's a perfect example where a customer can get frustrated, saying, I thought I moved to the cloud to be able to kind of eliminate some of these problems. But the reality is that's the limitation of a key ingredient of their product or of their solution. And because it wasn't load tested to the degree of the potential user base, this never surfaced. And the handful of users that were using it, it wasn't an issue until it grew. That's a perfect example that to your point that I think performance testing is incredibly important.
So, and I think,
go ahead.
I was going to say, the other aspect of that too is they're also, hardware is optimized in different environments, right? So our environment is built to operate the way it does, right? Under our parameters and our variables that we say this is our service levels, right? You go to a customer site, and then from customer to customer, it's always different, right? SANs start with a basic starting point, and then they're optimized to their environment, right? Customers also forget that a lot of times we will pull Band-Aids off when you move it from on-premise to, into the cloud. It's because now we are exposing, gaps, or the fact that hardware is masking a particular issue, even in code, right? So I think in a lot of aspects, customers forget just because time passes by and all the pain and stuff put in and doing those types of things gets forgotten, right? It's like I've had customers go through hypervisor experiences, and then when they went to cloud, it was like you're repeating the same sins, but you forgot the lessons you learned, right? Because it's changed the environment, so you can't do.
That actually kind of, when we talk about changes, right, that's the other piece that I forgot to mention earlier. It's not just the perf testing, but when you do your perf testing is a great time to build your deployments and build your deployment scripts and to build your deployment configs, because I can't tell you how many cases as an escalation engineer where someone says, but this environment's the same as fill in the blank other environment. And, we spend weeks debugging. We go, yeah, but this reg key is different, or this config file is different, or you forgot to deploy this. Oh, well, I was pretty sure they were the same. Well, but
you want one of those big X's from Family Feud, it's loud.
And it's great. I mean, it's just great to be on the cloud. I actually can deploy the same thing because I'm not worrying about matching hardware, right? I'm worried about deploying the same SKU, the same, whatever, and that infrastructure, that deployment as code, like it's I didn't get it coming from the on-premises world. Like I knew that people made that mistake all the time, right? But we really didn't have the tools to to kind of fix that, right?
Yeah.
In the cloud, the tools have developed. Now some of those are backport to on-premises now as well, but like leveraging that stuff is key because, man, I would, so to pure honesty, right? As somebody who does troubleshooting for a living, I like the really hard problems. I really do. They're super fun. They're super interesting. But I really don't enjoy being the one that has to tell the customer, oh yeah, you forgot to set config file X or Y that's your stuff. Because I just would rather say, oh yep, we've got an issue with our stuff, we can go fix it. It's not your fault, it's our fault, right? That's just a much easier conversation to have. And it's a much more fun investigation because your customers are doing something we didn't expect, or they're pushing the product or pushing the platform. But if it's just you missing a config somewhere that you thought you had, like, I mean, you just don't break yourself into jail, right?
Right.
Yeah. You got to create a safe place though for that discovery. I get that. That's a difficult challenge, right? You got to treat the customer with respect and empathy and dignity, right? You don't call them stupid. It's not, and that's not what we're saying through this whole either. Because I think a lot of times, and I've been there. I was a customer before joining Microsoft, and I don't know how many times we had the CPR guys out, and they come back and go, "All right, here's our 400-page report on all the things you can improve, not mistakes. They were just things you could improve upon, and they were just mistakes."
I say this all the time, right? Like it is learning from your mistakes, right? Is huge because nobody. Well, I guess maybe not nobody, but I've never run into a customer who intentionally broke their environment, right? Or intentionally didn't, make that config change, right? Like, or at least not that they admitted, right?
Okay. So my name's still up on your bulletin board. I'm sure it is.
We haven't crossed it out yet.
Yeah.
But like, it's an honest mistake, right? That everybody does. These are incredibly complex systems, right? In this day and age. And so anything you can do to take that cognitive load, that deployment load off of the people is great. And now you're going to run it. Like, I would much rather, and I think it's much more interesting for customers to deal with a problem related to, Ryan was talking about, like this homegrown app that, I grew virally internally, right? That's a much, much better problem to have. Like, hey, I'm trying to scale this app because it was successful.
Right.
Then I had this app that I needed to work at the scale it was, and it's broken because somebody made a mistake.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Right. It's just a I think more fulfilling thing, right? To because something's not just broken, right? It's you're trying to get it better, you're trying to improve things, right? From that sense, and the cloud allows you to do that, right? You have that, that scale. We were talking about the M series before. Anybody remember how long it took to get the hardware equivalent of an M series back in the on-premises world?
In my world, it was 6 months. Easy.
Well, 128 core, 3.5 terabyte of RAM. That would probably require CFO approval and.
Well, okay, so we were deploying HP 960s, right? I mean, that was the biggest box HP other than the Unisys platform. So, and it was taking us 6 months and millions of dollars, right?
On your dock, probably, right? That's not even the app.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that was before we even had storage and network.
Yeah.
That was just a box or boxes, right?
And how long does it take you now?
Like 4 or 5 minutes.
I was gonna say I hadn't timed it because it's too fast. No.
Yeah, but I mean that's just like it's just amazing that we can do that. But like now that gives you the ability to really say, well, what happens if I throw this app on a massive machine, or I don't know, I actually test my DR, right? Or my DR environment is identical, right? If I need it to be, right? Like it's all those, Ryan was talking about his bill earlier, right? It's all about optimizing your cost, but like, it used to be, as in SQL, right? We had people have these super expensive DR sites, and not only had they not tested the DR because, it cost a lot of money to do that DR test, but on top of that, the DR site wasn't, was maybe running. Well, we kind of skimped on the hardware because we didn't want to sit there doing nothing.
This was the old hardware we had in our primary data center that we moved to the other building.
Okay. It's always the trade-off. Okay, we're going to spend $10 million on DR equipment. Oh, but you're only going to get 40% of your production capacity. And people would go like, why am I spending $10 million then? Right? Why are we doing this?
And now you can do it, right? You do it and you say, okay, I'm going to do smaller, but it scales.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You're not stuck with the hardware you start with. Like, so all that stuff, right? It comes into play, and I probably sound a little bit like an architect, right? Talking about this stuff, but this is all about eliminating the easy stuff, right? And then getting to the really fun, interesting, hard stuff, right? From that point.
Right. Right.
I CAD confessionals. I love this. This has been great.
Notice we don't use names.
Yeah.
We don't use companies.
Yeah.
We protect the lives of the innocent. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest, right? And this is, I don't know, there may be somebody running around Microsoft that'll get mad at this, but like we make the same mistakes sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Right, as a company.
We're not imperfect. Yeah.
No.
Absolutely. Ideally though, like we're in an interesting position. This is actually what I actually prefer to spend my time doing these days, right? Like, so the reason I find troubleshooting fun, I like doing it, right? That it's fun, heat of the moment, right? It's emotionally fulfilling, all that kind of stuff. But what I really like is turning around and turning that into a service improvement or a feature or a doc or whatever, to make sure the next person behind doesn't have to do it. And that's what we do with our mistakes, right? Every mistake we learn from and we figure out a better way to do it.
I think
and then feed that back to everybody.
I think a real good example of that was I don't know, probably 6-7 years ago or more, that we had a storage issue at one of our I think it was actually South Central, unfortunately, down in Texas, that a very small percentage of customers were impacted, but they were impacted pretty severely.
Hard, yeah.
And outcome of that was geo-replicated storage with the ability to read from your secondary without us having to declare an emergency. So that's an improvement area that now customers, it was a failure mode that we hadn't anticipated that occurred, and now customers are benefiting from our improvement in the service. So
absolutely. And the modern day version of that, right? Because 7 years is an eternity in our world, right?
Right.
Is when South Central went down in the fall, right? We didn't. We had read-only secondary, but you couldn't write, right?
Right.
One of the big things that came out of South Central, I think the feature just GA'd maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Now, instead of us declaring a disaster and failing over storage, individual customers, because again, we heard loud and clear from customers, hey, I need control of this, right? I need to be able to do this, and that's that opportunity to say, okay, yes, that was incredibly painful, but let's take the learnings from that and turn that into things to do, things that'll help customers, things that'll help them get better. But now as a customer, right, take advantage of that, right? Like code your app so that it has some sort of switch you can flip that says, don't read from primary, storage, read from secondary, or don't read from primary service bus, read from secondary, because it will happen, right? At some point, and it'll happen when you're at dinner, with on your anniversary, so like
graduation. I'm sure it'll happen near my funeral, but that won't be fun.
At least it'll give us something to do rather than mourn you, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true. See, it's my gift, my final gift to you guys.
And if Ryan had designed it right,
right, yeah.
Oh boy, yeah.
Nice. I like this guy. Ryan. No, wait. That was me. Maybe we just replace Ryan and you come on with this show more.
Yeah, boy.
But I can't tell you about anything that actually works.
Oh.
Right. Like if the service works as the feature works, I don't know. Yeah, it's the irony of my role, right? If it works, I don't know anything about it, right? So
no news is good news, I guess.
The best on call is when that phone doesn't ring.
Well, Evan, thank you so much for some of your insights and some of the things to watch out for, and then suggestions on how what customers should to take heed to, such as performance testing and so forth, to be able to really benefit from cloud scale computing. Definitely great to have you on.
Yeah, happy to. And now I have a couple more. I have one more name to put on my board. But this was fun. I appreciate you guys having me on, and it's always great to talk to people about what not to do, right? As well.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye now.